All right. Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name's Nicole. A warm welcome to our online discussion. We are going to, of course, continue with our English lessons. For today, we are going to continue on our lesson on pronunciation. I'm really glad you are here. Now, when we talk about pronunciation, sometimes people get a little nervous. We know that. Well, of course, for today, since I've mentioned that we are going to continue with, how do you call it? We are going to continue with our lesson on pronunciation. We are now on our topic with, as you can see on the screen, IPA, or the International Phonetic Alphabet. Now, last time we talked a lot about the big truth of English pronunciation, where we understand that what you see is not always what you hear. So we saw how English spelling can be quite inconsistent, with silent letters, multiple letters making one sound, and even one letter making many sounds. So we concluded that we really need a better system to consistently understand and produce English sounds, right? So, well, today we are going to meet that better system. We're going to explore the International Phonetic Alphabet, or the IPA. Now, what is IPA? You might get curious. What is it? Now, don't let the fancy name scare you. Think of the IPA like a universal map of sounds. Imagine you're trying to find a specific street, but all the singer signs are, confusing. So the IPA is like a clear, consistent GPS for every single sound in every language. For English, it gives us a precise symbol for each of those 44 sounds we mentioned last time because, again, we have 26 English alphabet, right? But we have 44 English sounds all in all, which of course it does not totally align with the number of English alphabet, which makes it, you know, which makes the English language a little bit, not, no, not a little bit, but really complicated, because it would have been much easier if there are 26 English alphabet and there is also 26 English sounds, because one is to one. It's very easy. It is to 44 sounds. Well, so that is why it is really important to really dig deeper, to really delve yourself into pronunciation, English pronunciation, because we cannot really predict how such particular word can be pronounced in English. Now, the beauty of the IPA is that each symbol here, it represents only one sound, and each sound is represented by only one symbol. So one symbol, one sound, one symbol. Very easy, no more guessing. It cuts through all the spelling confusion and focuses purely on how sounds are made. So what we will do today is that we're not going to memorize the whole chart, of course, absolutely not. Well, there's a whole chart for the IPA because, again, this is a pronunciation guide. So the chart, just it includes all the symbols of particular sounds. But yet, but yes, again, we are not going to memorize the whole chart. It would be very exhausting for you. It would be very, you know, it might be overwhelming to you because the symbol itself is really not that familiar to most of us. Even I don't really totally. There are sometimes there are times that I forgot what this particular sound, the symbol of this particular sound is. But yeah, we are not going to memorize the whole chart. But if you want, you are not restricted, you're not limited, you're not hindered to memorize the whole chart if you just want. Okay? Well, we are going to understand what the IPA is and why it is so useful. Of course, if we try to learn something, we should also know the reason why we are learning that particular topic. Of course, we would also here we are going to get familiar with how it helps us. We are going to look at some common symbols, especially for those tricky English sounds. So it's about giving you a powerful tool that you can use to confidently look up and learn the pronunciation of any English word without being tricked by its spelling. So it's a game changer for clear communication, just basically like that. So we are going to yeah, we're going to tap into the IPA. Okay, let's immediately dive into this. Okay, now here, actually, it's just, a little bit recap of what we did. Not what we did, but of what we talked about yesterday's session, which is the first session for pronunciation. Now, if you were with me on our last session on the first session for pronunciation, you will remember that this is the key takeaway for that whole session, and that is English is often inconsistent. English does not always guide pronunciation, right? Because it's just as simple as it is. You just read the whole you just read the whole sentences, and then of course understand, comprehend it, because we all know that English is not really inconsistent in a way that the spelling of a word does not always guide you how to pronounce that particular word. So English spelling does not always guide pronunciation. And we really we try to elaborate on that. And there are two main key points that we have provided. First is that one letter has many sounds, where you see the letter A here, it used cat, father, and came, which all has different sounds. And as you can see, they all have different symbols. That's the IPA symbols. So each sound that the letter A makes has its own corresponding IPA symbol. Because again, IPA symbol is 1:1. One sound, one symbol. Okay? And another key point is that many letters has one sound. And here we have spellings F, PH, and GH all making the same letter F sound. Not letter F, but F sound, or the f sound. Like in fish, phone, and enough. So these are the exact complexities that the English spelling presents. It's a reminder that relying on the alphabet alone to guide pronunciation is like trying to navigate a maze without a map, of course. It does not really help you at all. So this slide, it perfectly brings us to our solution for today. Because of these very mismatches, we need a consistent way to represent sounds, and a way that cuts through all the spelling confusion. And that's where the International Phonetic Alphabet, or IPA, comes in. Now, it's the map that will guide us through the sounds of English, where it can provide a unique symbol for every single sound, regardless of how it is spelled. All right? Okay. So, yeah. Well, this is the perfect question to ask ourselves. So, if spelling is not enough, how do we get clear pronunciation? Now, this is a big question, isn't it? If we can always trust the letters we see, how can we reliably learn how to say a word? And how can we be sure we are pronouncing it correctly, so that others can understand this clearly? This is where our journey into our international phonetic alphabet truly begins. The IPA is precisely the answer to this question. It gives us a consistent, universal way to present and represent sounds, cutting through all the confusion of English spelling. All right? Okay. Are you ready to discover the solution? Are you ready to discover IPA? Because we're going to move on immediately to the next display and find out what IPA is, or what is International Phonetic Alphabet. Well, that is moment. For a moment. Excuse me for a moment. Well, all right. Going back, there's just a little, something. But anyway, again, what is IPA, or International Phonetic Alphabet? We can just take it as an English pronunciation guide. Okay? This is an English pronunciation guide because Again, as I've mentioned earlier, there it is basically a chart with all the symbols of all the sounds in English. So, in simple terms, think of it like this. Imagine English spelling is a bit like confusing maze, right? I've mentioned that particular analogy earlier. So the letter A can sound totally different, just like in the example. And sometimes a letter isn't even pronounced at all, which is what we call silent letter. So the IPA is special. Universal alphabet is designed to represent every single sound that humans can make no matter the language, which means that IPA is not solely for English only. So IPA is a pronunciation guide for every language. You can totally use the symbols this and the sound it makes to all languages. It is not restricted, it is not limited to English language only. Okay? So it's really super useful for us because again, it is for all languages. While we focus on English, the beauty of IPA is that it has symbols for sounds in all languages. So this helps us, this helps us understand and describe sounds, even one that doesn't exist in English. Say, for example, in I cannot really name an example, but it maybe in another language, like in other languages. Well, it also helps with accents and difficult sounds because again, it is not solely for English language. But in essence, the IPA, it takes the guesswork out of pronunciation by giving us a consistent and accurate way to write down and understand speech sound. So it's a foundational tool for anyone serious about teaching or learning language pronunciation effectively. Very simple. IPA is a pronunciation guide, not solely for English, but for all languages, and we can use it to guide our pronunciation of English words. That's it. That's basically IPA or International Phonetic Alphabet. All right? Okay. Now, well, I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it? The background of the slide, I think you cannot see it. But yeah, there's, just a little there's just a little sneak peek of what the IP chart looks like. It's in the background. I just, lessen its transparency. But yeah, well, if you want to know, we're going to, of course, let you see the chart. Now, that is the IPA chart. No, now don't get too overwhelmed with this. If you're still, if this is the first time you are seeing this chart, don't get overwhelmed. It might be intimidating with all the symbols, with all the, with all the unfamiliar terms like monophthongs, diphthongs, voiced and voiced. What does that mean? Well, we're going to talk about that maybe today or on our later sessions because of course pronunciation, the topic about pronunciation will not be congested into one singular session. Okay? One single session. We cannot do that. That's pronunciation. It's a foundational subject and we cannot let a foundational subject be really encapsulated into a short time. We cannot do that because that's foundational subject and the foundations of communication, the basics of communication is very important. It's very important that we can ingest it. We can ingest these foundations, these basics to you. That is why we try to give proper enough time for you to grasp the concepts that we are going to talk about all in all in our lesson for pronunciation because pronunciation might be simple. We know that pronunciation is how we enunciate words, but it's more than that. Okay? There are plenty of topics that it covers. So we try to discuss those topics. We try to cover those topics into our um into our sessions. This is just the second session and we are still starting. We are not still, we are still far away with everything. But yeah, we are going to slowly, one by one, grasp the concepts under pronunciation. All right? And we, of course, we are going to start with something very, not basic, but it's foundational. It's really, the baseline, which is IPA, because it's a symbol. Since all throughout our later sessions, I will be, if there are vocabulary, I will be providing its, corresponding IPA transcription, as well as on our maybe future sessions, not only on the pronunciation, but also on different topics like travel English, vocabulary for travel English, conversational English, business English, and many more. Of course, when we try to cover topics, we always go back to how it is we always go back to knowing how it is pronounced. And one thing that can really help us guide how to pronounce the word or the phrase, or the term, all in all, is of course to have an IPA transcription beside it. All right, that is why we are going to try to cover this. I'm not going to cover this IPA transcription in one day only, in one session only, because it will get it may overwhelm you, and I don't want that. You won't be able to grasp the concept if you are overwhelmed with it. All right, so yeah, let's continue immediately. This is just, this is the IPA chart, but before we delve deeper into that, I'm just gonna let you see the how it looks like. But before that, um let's have this one. Well, IPA, there is only one rule in IPA, an International Phonetic Alphabet. Each IPA symbol represents only one unique sound. We all know that, right? We all know that each IPA symbol represents only one unique sound. This is the golden rule, the game changer. It's exactly why the IPA solves all those inconsistencies we talked about. Because of this rule, no silent letters in IPA is possible. If a sound is not made, there is no symbol for it, of course. It's simple. You won't see a symbol for the silent K in no, for the silent P in receipt, for the silent um what are silent H in honest. So all those silent letters in the given words, you will not find a symbol for it in the IPA transcription of the word. Okay? Now, there's also no tricky letter combinations that make one sound. So, if the SH sound, that's a consonant cluster, right? As an H, or it sounds sh, it makes one sound. There's just one IPA symbol for that sound. You don't have to worry about PH or GH for the um, F sound. PH and GH are all F sounds, so you're just gonna follow the IP symbol for the F sound. There's just one F symbol. So we are going to follow with that despite the spelling. Okay, so that's it. And what are the benefits of this amazing system? Of course, the display clearly outlines them. For us, first is it eliminates guessing. And this is huge. When you see a word's pronunciation written in IPA, you know its exact pronunciation. If you're just familiar with the IPA symbol, of course. Now, no more wondering how to say thought or beautiful or just from their spelling, because the spelling alone is really complicated, but the IPA tells you precisely. And also next is that the benefit of this is it is standardized in a way that it helps you understand pronunciation no matter the accent or the dialect. This means that IPA it's a universal language for sounds, and whether someone speaks American English, British English, or any other variety of English, the IPA symbol for the sounds will be the same. It's a common ground for understanding and teaching pronunciation globally. Take note, it's a common ground. Okay? It's also, For clear learning, it helps you identify and practice sounds you might struggle with. So instead of just hearing a word and trying to imitate, the IPA allows you to break a word down into its individual sounds, which gives you a clear target for practice. If you find the TH sound difficult, you can focus on its specific IPA symbol and practice that one sound, because the TH, the TH sound, yeah, the TH in spelling has two versions, has two different sounds. First is the voiced, and the second is the voiceless. But we're going to delve deeper into that later on our sessions. Yes, but that's that. And of course, aside from the three, we cannot deny that IPA is really an essential tool, because it is not just for linguists. Actually, it is not just solely for that. It is not just boxed that into that particular area. It is widely used in dictionaries. You will often see the IPA transcription next to a word, which is why I've mentioned earlier that when we try to discover new vocabulary, I will always try to put the IPA transcription for it, because that's just how it is in dictionary even. So we're gonna try to do that. Okay? Now, in language learning apps, we can also do that in Duolingo or something like that. Other apps, as long as it's educational, for language apps, and by teachers worldwide, of course. Learning it gives you really access to reliable pronunciation information in many places. So the IPA clearly is not just, a complicated chart. We cannot deny it's complicated, it's intimidating, but despite that, it we cannot also deny that it is a powerful tool that brings clarity, that brings consistency and precision to learning English pronunciation. It takes away the guesswork and gives you a direct path to accurate sounds. So that is for IPA, or International Phonetic Alphabet. All right. Okay, we're returning to the full phonemic chart, or the IPA chart for English, that shows all 44 sounds with their IPA symbols. Now that we have talked about the incredible benefits of the IPA, how it eliminates guessing, is standardized, and makes learning clearer, you can see how this comprehensive chart is the tool that makes all those benefits possible. Remember, this chart gives us vowels at the top divided into monophthongs. Now, monophthongs, if you try to really dissect the word itself, mono means one, which means that, and mono means one, and thongs, I think thongs for a moment. Let me try to really clarify what does the other syllable mean. But yeah, monophthongs is basically just, a single pure vowel sound. So there's just gonna be, how do you call that? There's just gonna be one single vowel sound here. It's not a combination basically. So that's that. So yes, I'm right. Thongs is mono. We know mono is referring to one or single, and then thongs, the other, the other spelling of the other half of the word. Thongs means sound. So one sound basically, if we try to dissect that. And diphthongs, on the other hand, diphthongs. Dip diphthongs. Di or die, it means two. There's two. Now, thongs again is sound. So there's two vowel sounds here. It's, gliding vowel sound. So one vowel sound smoothly glides to another vowel sound. If that particular, vowels do that, then we get a diphthong. Okay? One vowel sound smoothly glides to another vowel sound, we get a diphthong. And of course, aside from vowels, we get consonants at the bottom. Now, each symbol here is a precise representation of a single sound always. It's the map that will guide us to accurate pronunciation. So this is the IPA chart that will be our constant reference as we continue our journey into English sounds. We'll be looking at specific symbols and of course practicing how to produce them in our upcoming sessions. Again, that's the IPA chart. Now, below that yellow section, not yellow section, not below, but yeah, here, if you try to look at the upper right, like right below phonemic chart, there's voiced and unvoiced in there. Okay, there's voiced and unvoiced. Now here, for a minute. Now here, it's also part. It's like a legend. Now, voiced and unvoiced, it refers to whether your vocal cords vibrate when you make the sound. That's basically voiced and unvoiced. That's why there are times I mentioned that this is a voiced sound, this is a voiceless sound. So that's it refers to how it refers to the presence of vibrations when you try to make the sound in your throat, okay, in your vocal cords, basically. So voiced, if the particular symbol is totally black in color, then that's voiced. If it's gray, just like p, f, t, s, ch, s, sh, k. So those words, not words, those sounds are totally unvoiced or voiceless. Meaning, if you try to say the sound, there's no vibrations at all that you produce in your vocal cords. So that's that. Just, for you to be guided accordingly, because the legends here has its own purpose. That's why we try to explain what's its purpose. Now, for now, the main thing to observe here is that every box has one symbol, right? This is the IPA symbol for that particular sound. Every back has an example word, so this helps you connect the symbol to a sound you already know from English words. There there are no repeating symbols. Each symbol is unique to one sound, and there are no confusing spellings. The symbol is the sound, basically. So the chart is our reliable guide. So when you look up a word in the dictionary, you'll often see its pronunciation written in these very IPA symbols. So this is your map, basically, okay? Don't feel overwhelmed by all the symbols yet. We'll be focusing on different sections and specific sounds in future sessions. Today is just about seeing what this powerful tool looks like. And this is what it looks like. Now, for this one, it's really, how do you call that? As you can see, I've mentioned that the IPA symbol is cut into half, of course. It's cut into half for a moment. Yeah, it's cut into half because we, in English letters, in English alphabet, we have vowels and consonants. Now, looking back, at the if you remember vowel sounds, or let's say vowels, there are only how many vowels in the English alphabet? There are five, right? A, e, I, o, u. Those are our vowels. Those are our vowel letters. So despite that, we understand already that in English there are 26 letters but 44 sounds, meaning that vowel sounds has really way more than the number of vowel letters, which is five. And I've already told you about this in our first session for pronunciation, that vowel sounds all in all is 19. So there are five vowel letters, but when you try to enunciate the vowel letters in different words, or you try to combine them like diphthongs, you get 19 vowel letters all in all. Not vowel letters, but vowel sounds all in all. You get 19 vowel sounds all in all. That's how really, imagine you only have five letters, and English has its own way to make um triple its amount of the sounds that it can make. That's really complicated, no? That's intimidating in a way also. Now, when it comes to consonant, the consonant sounds here, Well, we understand that aside from the vowel letters, there are only five vowel letters, which means that the remaining letters are the consonants. Now, the remaining, we all have 21 consonant letters. So that's that. Consonant letters, 21 consonant letters. And um 21 consonant letters. The consonant sounds all in all, it amounts to 29 consonant sounds. It's not that much, if you try to think about it. It's not that much because, how do you call that? And not 29, but 25. I'm sorry, let me correct myself. Stand corrected. There are 25 consonant sounds all in all. So 25 consonant sounds compared to 21 consonant letters might not be much, but it's still, complicated in its own way. So we try to combine all those sounds that we've not generated, but we've talked. Generated. I'm not the one who created it, but yeah, not the right term. Sorry for that. um all the vowel sounds that we've talked, there are how many again for vowel sounds? There are 19 vowel sounds, and then you add that to 21 and not 25 vowel sounds. How many do you get? How many do you get? There are 44 vowel sounds. All right, and these are all it. Okay. All right. Okay. That is fantastic. This is fantastic, everyone. What you see on the screen now is another incredibly helpful visual when it comes to understand English sounds in the IPA because, of course, there are so many sounds, there are so many symbols, IPA symbols in this chart, in the IPA chart. But, sorry, but there are times that is despite that there are already, sample words under these different symbols, it's not really that familiar. Sometimes there are words, there are symbols, that, despite giving example, there are still some that we are really not familiar with, despite the example. So we try to narrow this down by giving you, we try to really grasp the concepts more effectively by giving you how your mouth formed, the mouth shapes for phonetic sounds. What does this mean? It's bridging the gap between the abstract IPA symbols and the physical act of making sound. So each symbol in the IPA, like this one, that's or um and letter or like that. So each symbol, it corresponds to a specific way your mouth, your tongue, and your lips need to be positioned to produce that sound correctly. So all those articulators that I've mentioned, it all of them works really greatly when producing one sound only. That's the responsibilities of the articulators, our mouth, tongue, and lips, as well as teeth sometimes, maybe. But yeah, you can see for each phonetic symbol here, there's a little diagram of a mouth showing you the general shape. This is super useful because it provides a visual guide for how to form the sound. It emphasizes that pronunciation is not just about listening, it's also about the physical movements of your articulators, your mouth parts, basically. No, I've mentioned that. So this is not just a chart about what sound goes with that symbol. It's about showing you how to make that particular sound. So it's a very practical way that the IPA helps us learn pronunciation correctly. So we won't go into every single mouth shape today, but it is important to see that for every unique sound in the IPA, there's a unique way to make it with your mouth. Okay? This level of detail is another reason why the IPA is such a powerful tool for clear pronunciation. Maybe we're gonna try a few of these because so that it can really be, useful to you. This one, I've mentioned this already. This this sound is oh, let me just, go directly with the sound. So this one is ah again. E, E, th, th, t, t, mm, b, b. What do I think? X, X, ooh, ah, uh, j, j, d, ye, ye. Okay, all those and many, many more sounds. Actually, we're going to dissect them by category like vowels and consonants, and that will be on our future sessions. Okay? All right. Of course, after everything, it's time to practice. Your turn, everyone. It's time to practice. We are now on our, assessing part of the discussion because we have now completed our introduction to the International Phonetic Alphabet. You've seen what it is, right? Why it is so helpful and even how it connects to the actual mouth shapes for making sounds. That's how it is really helpful to you. Now, how do you call that? Now it's time to put this knowledge. Okay? It, it's time to put the knowledge that you've learned so far into action. We're going to try out some practical exercises that will help you start applying what you have learned about the IPA. This is where the learning really happens, of course, by actively engaging with the sounds. All right. Are you all ready to dive in? You know? Are you all ready to give it a go? Because we're going to start soon. Okay, let me just prepare. Okay, let's move on and start practicing with this first slide. All right, very simple actually. Okay, let's, try to take a closer, more detailed look at our first IPA example on the screen. The word is cut. Again, cut. Very simple. Three letters, one word, one syllable. Cut. This is a perfect word to start with, as it clearly illustrates the beauty and simplicity of the IPA system, even though it's a word where spelling and sound happen to align quite well. So you see the familiar spelling cut, very simple because it aligns really well. The spelling, it aligns really well with the sound. So this is cut. Below that, you find its pronunciation represented in the International Phonetic Alphabet or the IPA, and that is the one highlighted in red. That one. That is cut. Notice very carefully those forward slashes that acts like a bracket. That one in the end as well as in the beginning. That forward slashes or that, slanted brackets. Whenever you see the letters or symbol placed between the slashes, it is a clear signal that you're looking at a phonetic transcription, which is, we understand it as a representation, a representation of the sounds of the word, not, of course, its spelling. This is a consistent rule across all IPA usage. So when you try to transcribe a particular word and try to give or make its IPA transcription, we always put them in these forward slashes because it's an identifying factor. It's an indicator that you are giving a phonetic transcription of a word. All right, so that's just that. We always try to put them in forward slashes. Okay, we always try. All right. Now let's break down each individual sound here or phoneme. That's individual sound is phoneme. So that makes up the word cat. As shown in the IP transcription, we start with k. Again, for a moment. We start with k, k. So this is the IP symbol for the hard k, 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 or K sound. It's the sound you make at the beginning of words like cat, king, and car. So notice that even though the English spelling uses the letter C here, the IPA uses the symbol K. This highlights how the IPA focuses purely on the sound itself, while C can sometimes make an S sound like in city or seas or and many more. Can I really think there's many I know there's gonna be plenty of words examples for that where the letter C is pronounced as S or hissing sound. Just like city, city, ceasefire, mm, kind of really Cinderella. I don't know, but yeah, that's that. Well, here the IPAK it always makes the K sound, no ambiguity. That's it. Okay, this particular IPA symbol is pronounced as again. Next to that is again I've mentioned this earlier. As in So this unique IPA symbol it represents the short vowel sound. It's the sound you hear in words like apple, trap, man, or bath in many accents. To make this sound, your mouth is usually quite open and your tongue is relatively flat in the middle of your mouth. It's a quick open sound, distinct from the in the father or came that we discussed last session because it's another different different uh sounds for letter A. Now the symbol only ever represents a specific sound. It doesn't get confused with other A sounds from English spelling. Okay. Lastly, we have t. T. This is the IPA symbol for the T sound. It's the sound you make at the end of cut or at the beginning of table or tap. Just like K, the IPA symbol T, the one inside forward slashes, it consistently represents the particular sound regardless of how it might be spelled in English, in which T in cat, for example, or sometimes add as a past tense ending. It like in walked, which ends like a in a T sound. Okay? So when you put these three distinct IPA symbols together, cut, you get the precise and ambiguous pronunciation of the word cut. Each symbol maps directly to the one sound, and there are no extra symbols for silent letters because there are none here or tricky combinations. So this example of cut perfectly demonstrates the core principle of the IPA. One symbol, one sound. So this consistent mapping is what makes the IPA such a powerful and reliable tool for learning and teaching English pronunciation. So completely bypassing the inconsistencies of English spelling is really important. So with that, this is again cat. Again, cat. Your turn now. I'd like everyone to try saying cat aloud several times, making sure you distinctly produce each of these three sounds. K, t. Really feel how your mouth forms each one and listen to the clarity of each individual sound. Let's start. Cat. Again, cat. Your turn. All right. Thank you so much. Now let's move on to our next practice word. Take a look at the word and image displayed on the screen. It is sheep. Again, sheep. This is an excellent word to continue our practice with the IPA, especially because its spelling uses those letter combinations we discussed last session that make single sound. On the display, you see the word sheep, its pronunciation in IPA, that one highlighted in the red, it's the IP transcription with those forward slashes. So remember, those forward slashes mean we are looking at the sound, not the spelling. That is why it's really important that you do not forget about them when transcribing. And then the breakdown of each individual sound. Here, we start with this one. It looks like a letter F, but with no line in the middle. So that is the sound that the consonant cluster S and H makes, or the sh sound. This is the IP symbol for the sh sound in shoe, in wash. So notice how the two letters S and H in the spelling are represented by one unique IPA symbol, which is the one I highlighted. That's the symbol. This beautifully demonstrates how IPA clears up those letter combinations we talked about. Okay? All right. Next to that is E, as in E, long E. This is the IPA symbol for the long E vowel sound, like in tree or green. Again, the two letters of E and E, yeah, E and E in the spelling are represented by one unique IPA symbol, which is that one, this one. Okay? With it's the IP symbol. Now there are two dots after the I means it's a long sound. So when you see an IP transcription of a word and there is two dots beside it, that's basically a long vowel sound. Okay? So when you took when you not took, but when you kind of like look at this ship, you're seeing the precise and ambiguous sounds of the word ship. Despite the spelling have five letters, the IPA shows us it only has three distinct sounds, perfectly clarifying how those, letter combination works. All right, your turn now. I encourage everyone to try saying sheep aloud. Focus on making each of these three distinct sounds. Sh, e. Really feel the difference from trying to sound out the letters. Okay, say it a few times to get more comfortable. All right. Okay. Now that is sheep. Again, sheep. It starts with sh, which is, um, the IP symbol is, it looks like letter F but with no middle line. This beautifully demonstrates how IP clears up those letter combinations we talked about. Next is E. So the long E vowel sounds because there's two letters in the spelling. Now the two dots after the I means it's a long sound, okay? Or the E. Now lastly we have this is the IPA symbol for the P sound, like at the end of sheep or at the beginning of pen. So when you look at it, sheep, you are seeing the precise and ambiguous sounds of the word sheep. Despite the spelling having five letters, SHEEP, the IPA shows that it only has three distinct sounds, perfectly clarifying how those letter combinations work because there's only one, not only, but there's an advertisement for that. There's just, one advertisement for that, but um what I'm talking about. So, yes, there is basically this is basically one syllabic word. But if you try to dissect that particular word and its IP description, there are three distinct sounds for it. Okay? All right. Your turn now. I encourage everyone to try saying sheep aloud, focusing on making each of these three distinct sounds. Really feel the difference from trying to sound out the letters. Say it a few times to get more comfortable. Let's start. Sheep. Again, sheep. Very successful to that. Thank you. All right. Fantastic work on sheep. Now let's move on to our next practice word on the screen. Sing. Sing. The word is a great example of another common letter combination in English that makes a single distinct sound, and the IPA helps us identify it perfectly. All right? The word is sing. Again, sing. Its pronunciation in IPA is sin. For a moment. Uh, sing, sing. That is the IP transcription, the one highlighted in the red. Now, to try to break it down of each individual sound, sin, it starts with a hissing sound, as in S. This type A symbol for the S sound like at the beginning of sing or sun. So, yeah, that is on sing. It starts with the letter S sound, followed by E, short E vowel sound. This is the IP symbol for the short E vowel sound, like in ship or hit. It's relaxed and short I. Next, lastly, is again, it's a nasal sound. It is one more time. This is the really interesting one. This unique IP symbol represents the NG sound, like at the end of sing or in the middle of longing. Notice how the two letters N and G are the spelling are represented by one single IP symbol, and that is the last one, the NG with a you know tail on it. This clearly shows that NG often acts as a single sound unit in English, not so separate sound. So when you look at sing, you are seeing the precise and ambiguous sounds of the word sing, despite the spelling having four letters, SING. The IP shows us it only has three letters, three distinct sounds, thanks to that sound. Okay? Well, but here when we try to pronounce the sound, um, how do you call that? Pay special attention to that final ng sound. It's made by the back of your tongue, touching the roof of your mouth, and the sound comes out through your nose. Practice it a few times. That's why it's a nasal sound. Okay, that is again. Mm. All right, fantastic work on sing. Now let's tackle a word that uses another common English sound, the one that also can also be represented by a combination of letters. Take a look at the word and image on your screen now. That is church. So this is an excellent word to practice with because it features a sound at both the beginning and the end that is often tricky to produce clearly for listeners. And it's also a great example of those many letters, one sound scenario. Okay? All right. The word is church. Its pronunciation in IPA is like that, the one highlighted in the red. Remember those forward slashes? We mean we try to include them because there's forward slashes, we mean we are looking at the sounds, not the spelling. Okay? Breaking it down for each individual sound, starting with ch. Again, ch. Actually, actually, if you just look at it in the IPA's transcription, the ch sound it is found in the beginning at all, and was as well as at the end. Okay, beginning and in the end. Ch sound. Remember those forward slashes of always. Now, trying to break it down, we start with ch. This is the IP symbol for the CH sound, like at the beginning of chair or cheese. So it's actually a combination of a T sound and the SH sounds blended together very quickly. So notice how the two letters C and H in the spelling are represented by, how do you call that? Represented by one unique IPA symbol, and that is TF. Not TF. We don't say it is a TF, but it looks like one. This one for a moment. That is the IPA symbol for CH sound or the ch sound. So when you look at it, we are seeing common uh, we are kind of like for a moment. Hmm. Okay. This clearly shows CH acts as a single sound unit, basically. Following that is This is the IP symbol for the U, R, or R sound, vowel sound, like in bird or teacher. It's a long stressed vowel sound, often called the rooted, um, not rooted, but I-colored IP symbol. The two dots means it's a long sound. Okay, that's the last one. Church. Again, church. So when you look at that one, that is church. You're seeing the precise and ambiguous sounds of the word church. Despite the spelling having six letters, CHURCH, the IP symbols, the IPA transcription shows us that it only has three distinct sounds, perfectly clarifying how those letter combinations work at both the beginning and the end of the word. Okay, your turn now. Encourage everyone to try saying church aloud. Focus on making each of these three distinct sounds, ch. So pay special attention to getting that OCH sound clear. Okay, at both ends and central your sounds. Practically you try to practice it a few times, plenty of times. Okay, and lastly, the last word is, all right. That is measure. That this can be challenging, but I know you will handle it well. For a moment. Now let's look at the another way interesting word on the screen for our practice. Measure. The word is a fantastic example because it contains a sound that might be new to some of you, and it beautifully showcases how the IPA symbol gives us a consistently symbol for sounds that English spelling spells in various ways. So the word is measure. In pronunciation, in IPA, the one highlighted, that's the IP transcription. First, notice the apostrophe before the M in the IPA. That little mark is called a primary stress mark. It tells you which syllable in the word is emphasized or stressed. Okay? In measure, the stress is on the first syllable. This is incredibly important for naturally sounding English, of course. Remember again, the forward slashes means we are focusing on the sounds, not the spelling. That's why when we try to put the IP transcription, even though it's only one sound, we always put the flash here. Okay? All right. And then we try to break them down of each individual sound. M as in, hmm. This is a familiar IP symbol for the M sound, like in man or moon or sound. Next to that is um how do you call that? Next to that is, let me see. Next to that, let's try to break it down. Next to that is eh. Again, eh. That's the IP symbol for the short eh vowel sound. So like in bed or red. Notice how the letters eh and ah in the spelling are represented by the single IPA symbol. So this is another excellent example of two letters combining to make one sound. Lastly, not lastly, but the third one is how do you call that? Um, church. A measure. Sorry, I'm still on church. Measure. So this is j. That's the j sound. Okay. Again, this is the j sound. So despite the spelling having six letters, MEASURE, the IP shows us it only has three distinct sounds. Put the word stress. Okay. All right. Okay. So when you look at merger, you are seeing the precise and ambiguous sounds of the word measure, including the stress pattern, despite the spelling having six letters. Okay? So, yes, that's on measure, despite the spelling having six letters. The IPA shows us it only has three distinct sounds, plus the stress mark, perfectly changing or clarifying how those letter combinations and the unique Z's sound work. Okay? All right. That is measure. Again, measure. All right. I think it's everything for a moment. Then, okay. Very good. Measure. Again, measure. Now, this session was all about getting acquainted with the IPA and understanding why it's such an essential tool. You've now got the map and you know what's that for. So for our upcoming sessions, we're going to take an event deeper dive into an even deeper dive into the IPA. We are not just going to look at the map from a distance. We are going to start exploring it section by section. We'll begin by focusing on the vowel sounds in English. One by one, you will learn how to produce them, recognize their IPA symbols, and distinguish between similar sounding vowels. So get ready to fine tune your ears and your mouths. You've made excellent progress today, and I'm genuinely excited to continue this journey with you as we unlock the secrets of each English sound with the IPA. Okay? So yes, I think that's it. This is the last one measure. Yeah. This is the last slide. This is the last slide for today's session on pronunciation, particularly focusing on introduction to English sounds and the IPA. All right? Okay. Okay, for a moment. Okay, is everything good? Everybody following? Because we are, at the end of our session for today on pronunciation, more specifically on introduction to English sounds and the IPA. But for today's session, we are just focusing on the IPA itself. Okay, we've already talked about English sounds on on our first on our first session. Okay, all right, everyone. That brings us to the close of our second session on English pronunciation. I want to extend a huge thank you to each and every one of you for your engagement and hard work today. You've already bravely stepped into the world of the International Phonetic Alphabet, and that's a significant leap in your pronunciation journey, of course. Today, we've achieved some important things. First is we were visited by why English spelling often causes confusion for pronunciation. Second, we formally introduced the International Phonetic Alphabet as our consistent, um, how do you call that? Consistent, maybe universal system for sounds, and we saw how it truly eliminates guessing. You got your first hook at the full IPA chart and understood its amazing benefits, like standardizing pronunciation across accents and making learning, how do you call that? Making learning more reasonable, okay, with its some miscellaneous fees. Okay. Now, most importantly, you've started to practice using the IPA. We broke down words like cat, sheep, sing, church, measure. So those all words. This session was all about getting acquainted with IPA and understanding why it's such an essential tool. You've now got the map, and you know what that's it for. What's it for? Okay. All right. For our upcoming sessions, we're going to take an even deeper dive into the IPA. We're not just going to look at the map from a distance, we're going to start exploring it section by section. We'll begin by focusing on the vowel sounds in English. One by one, you'll learn how to produce them, how to recognize their IPA symbols, and distinguish between similar sounding vowels. So get ready to fine tune your ears and mouth. Okay? That's it for today, everyone. Thank you and have a great rest of the night ahead. Goodbye.